because I make the only health coffee in the world. Why do I make the only health coffee in the world? Because I don't roast it. You see? Now, if you take a great big turkey and you put it in the oven, what happens? I mean, you cook it to a certain point, okay? But if you cook it too much, it gets all dried and wrinkled out, doesn't it, with that? And oh, that turkey's too dry because it's been over-roasted. All coffee is over-roasted, but it isn't. The coffee gets dry. They want it to get dry. That's why they roast it. Now, from not ever having tasted coffee, here I'm making the world's best coffee. How do I know I make it the world's best coffee? The World Coffee Association tells me I do. They have a coffee taster's cup, and the Boquete geisha coffee bean from Panama is #1 in the world, and it has been now for 14 consecutive years as the best tasting coffee bean in the world. They sell it at Starbucks in Japan, and I just had a bunch of Japanese distributors over here last week that came in and stayed with me at my ranch. And we have a thing called Mower Mountain Retreat, and they come in, and it's a lot of fun. You come there and you can act like a horse is behind, and you know, it's kind of like what stays in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what stays at Bear Mountain stays there, and we have a great time. So they came in and they were saying, oh yeah, this sells in Japan. Starbucks is $18 a cup. Yeah, that's the coffee that you're drinking here. Because it's pure Panama Boquete geisha. You can actually buy it, get on the internet, and you can buy it from Starbucks, $130 a bag. $130 a bag. There's one place I saw it was $99.95, $100 a bag. Ours is $26. You see? And it's micro-ground. What is micro-ground? Well, you have a ball that has so much surface area. But if you took that ball and you made little BBs out of every bit of it, how much surface area would you have? Massive amounts, you see? So we micro-grind it so that we can have all the full flavor and richness with it. And then we don't roast it, we cook it. You see? But why do they roast it? They roast it so it gets dry so they can grind it because it's full of oil. And oil lubricates, so you can't grind it. You'd have coffee gombo, you know, if you did that kind of thing, because it wouldn't grind. So, but when you roast it like that, guess what? You create cancer-causing acrylamides. And now, according to Proposition 65, in California, every coffee shop you go into, in the grocery stores, there's a sign, warning, coffee causes cancer. Why do they have that up? Because coffee causes cancer. You see, it does. Have you burnt bacon? You know it causes cancer. Have you burnt toast? It causes cancer. Those things happen. The same thing happens when you roast coffee to that dark roast the way they do so they can grind it. Well, I don't want, you know, it's really hard to keep distributors when they keep dying off from cancer if you're giving them coffee that causes it, don't you think? So based on that analysis, I decided I would cook it rather than roast it. So instead of roasting it for a long period of time at 480 degrees, I cook it for a shorter time with an infrared heat that's more uniform at 200 degrees less, 280. And when mine done, it is cooked to perfection. And I have bought the most sophisticated coffee machine in the world so we can adjust the flavors. And we have the World Coffee Specialists Association testing it and tasting it, and they're telling us right where the flavors are. Do you know where these coffee companies are that are selling these MLM coffees on the scale from 1 to 100? They're rating in the low 60s, about 60. Do you know where coffees like Folgers and Maxwell and Nescafe are? They're in the 70s. Do you know Starbucks is rated the best tasting of the 20 biggest coffee companies, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe their rating is 81 on it. Okay, so why is theirs 81? Because they use a certain amount of Panama Boquete geisha coffee, and they micro-grind it. And they have a secret process for micro-grinding it. And, you know, patented anyway, and they keep it secret. But I know what that secret is, you see? Because how do you grind oily coffee? Well, it's really quite simple. You freeze it. You take it down cryogenically to about 150 degrees below zero, and it is colder than my mother-in-law's kiss. That son of a gun is so brittle that you can grind it. And you grind it up. And then once it's ground up, then it can heat up. And there it is. Then we add other ingredients in it to make it flow, and you have destroyed none of the properties. You haven't created any cancer-causing carcinogens, no tannins, none of those things that's bad for you. Now where coffee is bad for your heart, it's good for your heart. Now where coffee damages the liver, this repairs the liver. Now where coffee is bad for the brain, it builds clusters of brain cells, according to the science that's out there. Now I can't say it about our coffee because ours hasn't been tested. According to the FDA regulations, a 100,000-page document to apply for it, 20 years of testing, $2 billion. I cannot say that, but I can say it about the ingredients. And I will tell you this, our ingredients are there. And the Alzheimer's Association says if you don't over-roast coffee, if you don't freeze-dry it, if you don't decaffeinate it, there is a mysterious ingredient in it, and it may be the answer to Alzheimer's because it builds clusters of brain cells. See? So do you want clusters of brain cells? Yeah. Would you like to have a cluster? Yes. That's the kind of thing. And so if Alzheimer's is eating holes in your brain, if it looks like Swiss cheese is what it does, how about filling them in? Can you imagine coffee fills in the holes in your brain from Alzheimer's? Can you imagine coffee rebuilds the heart, the lungs, the organs, antioxidant? Coffee makes you live longer. And then you add health ingredients to it, but you don't add undetectable parts. You put amounts in it that are therapeutically powerful. And is Ganoderma good? Good might be the right word for it. There's negatives and there's positives in Ganoderma. It's a fungus, you see? And so some funguses will kill you. You know that, poison mushroom, see? And so it's the same way. And some have great power, psychedelic mushrooms, right? Ray, they're pretty good, aren't they? So with psychedelic mushrooms or poisonous mushrooms or mushrooms on your steak, somewhere in between in the fungus world, there's properties. Mushrooms will repair the damage that causes to your skin. So there's all kinds of properties. But what's number one in the world? You hear these companies saying, Ganoderma, it's the king of herbs. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But when you think about it, it's really quite a stupid statement because a fungus isn't an herb. Did you know that? Come in. We're just speaking about fungus. You made it in time. So, anyway, here they say, Ganoderma is the king of herbs. It's not an herb. It's like saying a chicken is the king of strawberries. It has absolutely no relevance at all to herbs. It's not an herb. So out of the fungus world, what is the best one for building health? It's not even a close second. It's Chaga. Chaga, which comes from birch trees. That big, have you ever seen those white bark trees with a big cluster of black on it? That's fungus. That is Chaga. And the best comes from Russia. Because the further north, the less light for the winter, the greater the cold, and the summers where the light is there all the time causes such extremes that Chaga has developed in powerful properties. And the researchers who know about fungus from Japan, from China, from Korea, from Russia, say that Chaga is over 100 times more powerful than Ganoderma. So which one do you want? Chaga? Should we throw in some Ganoderma too? Sure, let's throw it in. It's good. But Chaga is great. Great for all those things, for the health. Do you know what superoxide dismutase is, some of you? Probably a few heads not. It's the anti-aging enzyme we have in our body. It counteracts the oxygen. Have you ever seen children that are 5, 6, 7 years old and they've aged 10 years for every year they've lived and they're 50, 60, 70 years old? See? 10 years ahead because they have no superoxide dismutase, and every breath they take ages them so incredibly fast, and they're dead by 10, you see, with that thing. But Chaga puts as much superoxide dismutase in your system as if you took 2 capsules of it, which is really quite expensive. Can you imagine that? And as you get older, your SOD, you haven't noticed it, but it's going down. Your SOD goes down. And with it, you age faster because oxygen does more damage to you, just like it rusts, oxidizing, see? So Chaga just fills your body. A cup of coffee with Chaga fills your body with superoxide dismutase. Isn't that something? Now you learned a little something with it, but it builds the brain, builds the heart, builds the liver, builds the organs, gives you energy. Coffee's good for you, done right. Done wrong, it's bad for you. So I've made the world's best tasting coffee. In order to do that, I had to build a coffee plant because there's about 8 middlemen in it, and this is the world's most expensive coffee bean. So I had to go directly to Panama, and I had to buy from the pickers. Had to get a little group of pickers that were picking, that grows on the volcanoes high in Panama. The bean is the best tasting, and the soil is sweet soil. Most coffee is grown in sour soil, lime soils, you know, on the coast and places like that. This grows on a volcanic soil that is unique because instead of being bitter, it's sweet. It's acidic soils. And so here's the best bean in acidic, and when it's very high in the mountains, the higher up, the more solar radiation it gets. And just like, you know, if you go up high in the mountain, you can get a sunburn real easy because there's less atmosphere to protect you. And so over the centuries, or million, I don't know how long coffee's been around, but anyway, with that, because of that intensity at that altitude, those beans have responded and they produced more antioxidants, more flavonoids, more flavor, you see? And that's what we've got in ours. Grown at the highest altitudes, grown in the sweetest soil, and the #1 rated coffee bean in the world, and because it's just unique to that area, it's highly sought after. And then there's about 6 or 8 middlemen. By the time the coffee gets to you as a consumer, I had to cut it. Here we are back to the MLM theme again, see? I had to cut it out. So how can you do that? You have to do that by manufacturing, and so I built a coffee plant in my big plant and was able to do it. And now we make the world's best tasting coffee. We also make the weight loss coffee with it too, with those ingredients with it. And then out of that, we are about to bring out the world's best tea. Now teas, necessarily green teas, are good for you, except they taste a lot like grass clippings. Have you noticed that? And I don't like that. So what we've done is we've taken green tea, Sencha, which is the best one, has the best health properties. And then what do we do with it? We added Chaga, Gotu Kola, which builds the whole cardiovascular system. Bacopa builds the brain, the whole nervous system. Same thing we're using in coffee. And Chaga, a little bit of Ganoderma in it. Then we've intensified the EGCGs, if you know what they are. That's what's in coffee or in green tea that makes them so healthy and burns fat and things like that. Put them all together and it still tastes like grass clippings. So what we did is we nano-sized it. We took it down and we took out all of these other parts that caused the flavor and we put it in nanoparticles. Once we did it in nanoparticles, then we impregnated it, and that's not a sexual term, this is a coffee or a tea term. We impregnated it with peach and mango flavors. And boy, that peach mango flavor in that, does it taste good? And it'll be out here in just a couple of weeks. And so now here is a super health tea for you that'll burn fat too if you want to burn fat, but give you energy and build your health and everything else, loaded with superoxide dismutase. Can you imagine these things? Now you thought drinking coffee was simple. It is. Just drink coffee and leave the driving to us, because see, we're the Greyhound bus drivers of this. We know how to do it. We know how to get you there, and the things that I'm doing will give you products like you've never ever seen before. And that's the key to it. There's the difference. So we got talking about coffee, and here we are with this kind of products, unequaled in the world. Now, on the World Tasters Cup, you know where our coffee is ranked right now? It's above 90, above 90. Starbucks best tasting of the top 20 biggest companies in the world, about 81. The ones like Folgers, Nescafe, in the low 70s. The coffee companies in MLM in the low 60s, you see? So what kind of coffee do you want to sell? Do you want to sell the world's best tasting coffee? Do you want one that has undetectable amounts of Ganoderma in it? Or do you want huge amounts of these others? Chaga, Bacopa, Gotu Kola, all of those with such immense power. That's what you want, you see? That's why our company is so much different than any you've ever dealt with in your life.